So in this clip you can see Harry Maguire starting out with the ball in the centre of the back three in the middle third, and you can see Amorim's side are set up in that usual box shape in front of the back three, but in this game we saw Mazraoui being the player positioned in the left-sided half space, having inverted infield from left wing back, with Garnacho being the player on the outside of Fulham's defensive shape on the left side in an advanced position, keeping the width in the system. Now usually had Fulham stuck to their zonal 4-4-2 shape in the middle third, having Harry Wilson, the right side midfielder, holding a position in line with the rest of the midfield, then Mazraoui would have space in that area wide of and in behind Lukic, who has been drawn high with Bruno Fernandes' deeper positioning in the double pivot. But because Wilson has followed Mazraoui's movement central, the space is now open wide of Lukic for Lisandro Martinez, who is currently out of picture but will become more important as the play continues. But initially Maguire looks to circulate the ball to the right rather than the left, and this is where I think Amorim's possession setup is improving, as in previous games I think we've been far too static, with the two players in the half space being far too positionally restricted by having to hold their positions between the lines in these areas, which against a narrow midfield like Fulham's, the passing lanes into them can be easily cut off. However, here we see Amad vacating the position in the half space behind Iwobi to instead pull wide of him into a deeper position on the right flank, with Dalot pushing forward in order to positionally pin the Fulham left back Robinson back into the back line, allowing Amad to open up that passing lane from De Ligt, wherefrom he receives the ball and the Fulham midfield line shifts over to United's right, wherefrom Amad now has the ability to drive infield and switch the ball out to Lisandro Martinez, who, because Harry Wilson had followed Mazraoui's movement deep, can now carry the ball forward into that space. But this is where I think the arrival of a left wing back and a left-sided interior forward could improve United's ability to progress the ball into the final third. But before I break down exactly why this is the case, a quick reminder, I do have an in-game Instagram group chat where we do have analysis and discussion throughout all the Manchester United games, as well as talking about topics throughout the week as well. I'm also working on a tactical ebook, so if you are signed up to the Instagram group chat when that is released, which hopefully should be at the start of next week, you will get that for free, which should work out slightly cheaper for you. So if you do want to sign up to the Patreon, I'll leave it linked in all the usual places, the eye above, description, comment section, and on the end screen after the video. So from here, Martinez is efficient as always with carrying the ball into the space, which forces Wilson to have to leave Mazraoui in order to step forward and engage Martinez. And this is the type of situation where United need to be able to use the triangle of Martinez, Garnacho and Mazraoui, and even Højlund ahead, in order to play around Harry Wilson, in order to work the ball into the player between the lines, which is Mazraoui in this situation. Martinez moves the ball out wide to Garnacho, and from this situation, firstly, I think Højlund should be looking to pull wider into the channel as soon as Garnacho receives the ball, not necessarily to even receive the pass up the line from Garnacho, which is an option, but really to draw Anderson, the right-sided centre-back, out wide and stretch the space between him and Bassi, wherefrom if Garnacho can efficiently play the pass back inside into Mazraoui, with the pass angled in front of him, then he can turn and drive forward with the ball, and now either Mazraoui has space between Anderson and Bassi to drive into, wherefrom when Anderson comes over to confront him, Mazraoui could feed the ball in behind for Højlund down the left-sided channel, or Mazraoui can turn with the ball, and if Amad is able to break ahead of him, he can thread that pass into Amad, who will now be facing forward with the ball at his feet in behind the Fulham midfield line. However, Højlund doesn't pull wide enough for my liking, and so Anderson's able to retain this position centrally, but even still, United should be able to work the ball in behind the midfield line from this situation, with Garnacho playing a pass into Mazraoui, from where a few quick short passes between him and Højlund could work the ball into Amad. But the issue is United don't have the profile of players to be able to work the ball quickly through this type of situation. None of Garnacho, Mazraoui or Højlund are the type of players who thrive when linking play with these short sharp passes in congested areas, as someone like Jadon Sancho would. Dogu does have this capability of finding an incisive pass in field, so hopefully if he's brought in the left wing back position, when he receives a pass like Garnacho did from Martinez, he can with a maximum of 1 or 2 touches bounce a ball back inside into Mazraoui. And if United were able to sign someone like Nkunku on loan in January and use him alongside Xerxes, I think if you put Xerxes in Højlund's position and Nkunku as a player who initially holds that position in the left-sided half space that Mazraoui was picking up, then United should be able to efficiently work the ball with a few short passes, 1 and 2 touch, into a position where they can then progress the ball into the final third. But Garnacho isn't quick enough, and so Mazraoui and Højlund don't even get the opportunity, even though I think if the ball does go back inside, I still wouldn't be fully confident in Mazraoui or Højlund in these type of congested areas to be able to quickly work the ball in behind the Fulham midfield line and get the ball into Ahmad, and so because of this we end up back in front of the Fulham midfield line with Lisandro Martinez. But this is another example where I think we see how Amorim's system has begun to improve, but also where he can improve it further. Firstly, Amorim seems to have begun to incorporate more of a relationist approach to his use of the front three, particularly with Ahmad, as rather than instructing Ahmad to hold a position as a right-sided interior forward in that right-sided half space on the other side, Ahmad is now given the freedom to float further in field, and we see the benefit of this here, as United are able to overload the Fulham central midfield, creating a 3v2, with Ahmad being the free man, sitting in behind Lukic and Berger, the Fulham midfield double pivot, who have been drawn higher up onto Ugarte and Bruno Fernandes. But in order for United to work the ball between the lines, this still requires Ahmad to have the football intelligence to make a movement in order to open up a passing lane, and he does this extremely well here, initially looking to move between the Fulham midfield double pivot, before recognising that he's better off arcing his run and dropping onto the right hand side of Lukic, and Martinez from this position is fantastic at reading Ahmad's movement, before efficiently splitting Lukic and Wilson at the exact right time, playing the pass to find Ahmad's feet. Now in all fairness, Martinez does drive the ball with a lot of pace at Ahmad, but ideally we'd see Ahmad receive the ball in his back foot and then drive forward into the space. But this is where I think you could make an argument that Amorim needs to be less risk averse with his setup in possession, as if we imagine that Ahmad is able to get the ball under control and drive forward from this position, he doesn't really have any forward passing options. I get that Amorim wants to retain that 3-2 rest defence in case of a turnover in order to protect against Fulham's attacking transition through the centre of the pitch, which has caused United problems in the past, but considering we only recorded an XG of around 0.21 compared to Fulham 0.67 throughout the entirety of the game, with just 0.03 of that coming from open play, I think at least during periods of the game we have to take more risks, and this would come from having someone in that 3-2 rest defence, either the right-sided centre-back or the player on the right side of the midfield double pivot, pushing further forward ahead, in behind the opposition's midfield line, temporarily seeing the system transition from the 3-2-5 to more of a 3-1-6 or a 2-2-6, and the benefit of this would be that as Ahmad receives possession between the lines, you would have someone who can make a forward run from the right-sided half space between Robinson and Bassi, opening up the opportunity for Ahmad to then release them in behind with a through ball, or even if they just held their position in the half space, this would allow Ahmad to find their feet, wherefrom United would now have the opportunity of a 2v1 on that right side, with Dalot able to make a run in behind, down the outside of Robinson. And this is also why I think United desperately need players in the front three or even at wing back who have the ability to receive passes like the one that Martinez found Ahmad with, who can then seamlessly in one movement turn before driving into the final third. And we saw Musiala provide an excellent example of this in the Bayern Munich game, and this is where I think players like Nkunku, João Felix, Desiree Doué, Tyler Dibling, and even Ahmad when he's moving inside from the right side into that half space area, even from the wing back position, would all massively improve United's ability to progress the ball into the final third. Now largely due to the pace of the ball, but maybe also his body positioning, Ahmad can't quite get the ball out of his feet quickly enough, and Lukic is able to get back goal side, but Ahmad does well to retain possession and find Bruno Fernandes. But once again, I think we can see the issue that being overly conservative with the rest defence structure can have, as when Bruno Fernandes receives a ball and opens up his body, you can see that the passing lane into that right-sided half space is open, but no one is positioned there. Ugarte really should be making a forward movement into this area as Ahmad plays a pass into Bruno, and this would allow Fernandes to then split Berger and Iwobi, allowing United to work the ball in behind the Fulham midfield line, with Robinson now being isolated in a 2v1, with Dalot making the run in behind him down the outside. However, because Ugarte holds a deeper position alongside Bruno Fernandes in the centre of the pitch, the only forward passing option that Bruno has is to try a low probability long pass out to Dalot, which he gets the right weight on, but the direction is slightly behind Dalot, making it hard for him to get the ball under control, and even when he does, he's completely isolated on the right side, and the attack eventually breaks down. Now you could make the argument that if you had a more natural winger or a 1v1 specialist in this right wing back area, such as maybe Jeremy Frimpong, then United could use this long switch of play to isolate him in the 1v1, whilst also keeping Ugarte deep in the rest defence. And whilst I would agree with this, Even still, I think this is very reliant on individual players, and to pull off this sort of long pass and then have the right winger beat his man in a 1v1 is still very low probability and not going to work consistently throughout the full game. But if Amorim could adapt his possession system to become a bit less risk averse by committing a player forward from the rest defence in behind the opposition's midfield line, when Ahmad does vacate that area and drift centrally, then I think United would have a lot more success throughout the entirety of a game with progressing the ball in behind the midfield line and working the ball into the final third, compared with having to rely on the individual ability of Bruno Fernandes's long passing, alongside the right wing back's ability to control that sort of long pass, as well as their dribbling ability in the 1v1.